So all three of you are fresh from a research trip to India. And so one of the things I wanted to hear about first is your impressions. Sean, I know this was your first trip, repeat trip for you. You've had many trips, so talk to me.
20 trips in 20 years, roughly.
Wow.
So let's hear a little bit about initial impressions, repeat impressions.
Well, it was my first trip. We just read this week about India becoming the most populous country in the world. And I would say going to Mumbai, I'm not surprised. Definitely felt like that. The other one is how bullish everyone we met was on India's growth prospects. So at times I felt like I was being pitched some sketchy cryptocurrency or something. But as we met more and more companies and talked to more people around kind of the industrial manufacturing world in India, I mean, there are some exciting things going on.
For me, 20 trips roughly in 20 years, I also felt that people were probably the most bullish I've ever seen them. And I came back and I was like, let me just look at some numbers and see where India is on GDP growth, on per capita income. Just broad strokes, GDP growth has been the highest amongst large economies, so between 6 and 7% last year, expected to be similar this year. So GDP growth is there, but really, combine that with, per capita income still at the lower end of the range amongst, the 200 odd countries we have. Foreign direct investment has picked up, Chris tells me, but as a percentage of GDP, it's been about flat at 1.5%. And talking about population, so I think the other big thing for India is that they do have a demographic dividend, which no longer exists for a country like China. So very large young population between the age of like 20-something and 60-something, which India is going to reap for probably another 20, 25 years. So that's one reason to be bullish, and GDP growth is there. But frankly, income inequalities, poverty, on the streets, visible signs of there not being a lot of economic development are still there. So you still scratch your head a little bit about, why is everyone so bullish?
Yeah, I was going to say it was a stark contrast to my first trip, which you joined me in was it 2020, 2019 that we went. Yeah, it was, you didn't get that same kind of bullishness across all of our meetings. I think some of it too also a function of the companies you're meeting. If you remember, and the timing, we were coming off of GST, we were coming off of the real estate kind of financial stresses that they had there, which preceded kind of China's issues, GST implementation,
which is general sales tax.
Yep. Kind of fast forward, it was interesting being able to make that comparison. It was also fascinating watching Sean go through this like kind of first, iteration of experiencing India. Yes, the traffic is miserable there, but it's materially better than it was on our first trip. I mean, I recall spending 2.5 hours to get to South Mumbai and doing it in like 45 minutes on this particular trip. Or, these are weird little soft things, but, cell phone coverage was materially better. You're starting to see these like little incremental improvements around, the physical and digital infrastructure, at least from my observation over that, 3-year time frame.